Hey there. Good morning, CSL Palm Desert and beyond. It is March 1st. Can you believe we're already back in March? Wow, what a year, huh? Whew. Anyway, well, we're here and we're talking about working with the spiritual laws, working with the law of Raymond Holliwell's book. And we've been reviewing the various spiritual laws the past few weeks. We're going to keep going through that. Today, we're going to talk about the law of receiving. And this is one of those chapters that when I look at my book, I have it highlighted in yellow, and I have it highlighted in pink, and I have it highlighted in a little blue and a little green. And so now the whole book looks like it's brown because I've just highlighted just about everything. So everything in this particular chapter is very relevant in my mind and is a very important teaching tool when looking at spiritual laws and living a life of success and doing it in a spiritual way. Okay, so let's dive right in. The law of receiving. The teaching of Christ shows that the way back from wrong results of selfish living to the love, intelligence, and power of God, by man's words, deeds, and actions, he reveals whether he has found the way. God exists in man and man's highest concept of perfection and comes forth through man's faith and works as a redeeming love, intelligence, and power. Woof. So there we go. We're going to talk about how in the Christ consciousness of giving, the Christ consciousness of receiving, how we can live a fuller expression of life. And it's actually taught through the lessons of Jesus the teacher, okay? He who seeks the Father with getting as his objective does not seek God in trueness of spirit. So the person who's only seeking to achieve something is not really aligning themselves with the spirit, with God, essence, whatever you want to call it, power, to the extent that you are just concentrating on the material aspects of life. There has to be a balance between the material getting and the givingness of yourself into the universe and contributing whatever it is back into the universe for the law of circulation to happen. All right? He says this, in a state of limited understanding, we reason that we must get before we can give. And then we turn that and walk in the same mental rut as before, reasoning that we must give before we can get. But in our lack of understanding, we continue to leave the getting idea foremost in our thought, and we shut out the spirit of giving. Many people think, in order for me to give, I have to get first. I have to receive first in order for me to give first. And I remember Dr. Tom used to always talk to us, and he would say, you always have to prime the pump of receiving by the practice of giving. So once we start giving, it opens up the door to receiving. But many people have it backwards. They're like, when I get stuff, then I'll give back. And what I don't think they realize is that the actual receiving is a byproduct and an effect of activating the law first of giving first and then receiving. All right, here we go. Giving, which is the first or fundamental law of life, is the first law of all creation. The attitude of getting is the law of life in a congested state or in repressed action. As long as getting dominates a mind, the mind is in a paralyzed condition, being limited in its action in accord with the fundamental law of creation. So, as long as one's whole objective is to get, one is not using the spiritual law correctly. The first law of receiving is the act of giving. Now, here we go. How do we align with that frequency? He has a great example here. Keep in mind, this was written, 60, 70 years ago. So times have changed, but this idea, as cryptic as it is actually one that you can understand and apply. The radio has aided greatly in explaining the process of the law of giving and receiving, or prayer and blessing. The principles involved are very similar. In fact, they are the same except that one is mechanical and the other is mental. When the operator projects a program, okay, when you're the radio broadcaster, you stir up a vibration in the air that goes out forth to accomplish what it will. That person has nothing to do with it after it's projected. The ether or the air carries the vibration to any station that is capable of receiving and reproducing it. When we pray, let me say it again. When we pray, we in turn stir up a vibration with our desires. This also is received by a force determined according to the power, the purpose, and the sincerity of our prayer. Often when we pray, we think that all is necessary is to keep on praying, with the result that just never adjusts ourselves to becoming receptive to receiving our answers. And so we complain that we don't get things enough promptly. All right, so let me unpack this. The radio, the broadcaster puts out this thing in the vibration of the universe. And it's the receptor, it's you and I, it's our desire to listen to a certain frequency. And so we tune into it on our radio. Think of it as just like being a dial on your radio. So what's interesting is the fact that there are millions and millions of vibrations going through this airspace right now. Millions and millions and millions. I mean, I can turn on my phone and I can listen to air traffic control signals coming from control towers all over the world. I can listen to radios and broadcasts from all over. There's a vibration and a frequency that if I tune in my receptor clear enough and tune it in and fine tune it, I will get exactly what I want to hear. But as the person who wants to participate in that, it's not like I can just sit here and go, okay, the vibrations are passing through this room and I want to tune into them and do nothing and wait and just say, okay, I want it, but I'm not willing to do anything to tune in to that receiving, giving energy. I just want to talk about it. I just want to pray about it, and I don't want to do anything beyond that. And I think what you're going to find is, as we go through this chapter, he's going to talk about prayer just isn't enough. Prayer is how we start the process. But prayer is just, it's like lighting, it's like taking the match, but not putting it to the candle to get the light to come up. It's like, and that's there. So the prayer, but it doesn't go any further. In fact, it burns out unless you put it to the wick, right? Unless you actually light the candle. And then it can light up the room, all right? I hope you're following this. Here we go. After you form a definite, clear outline of your desire, then release your thought Godward. I like that, upward Godward. Let it go, like throwing a ball out with no string or rubber attached to bring it back to you. Somehow it becomes more important things to larger things. We fail to release our desires and prayers as readily, and anxiety tension holds everything fast, okay? Nothing worthwhile is accomplished. The mind is like a sponge. We squeeze it hard with all of our anxious thoughts, but it's not until we can release the pressure that allows the sponge to take back its normal shape and allow the sponge to take its shape and become more absorbent and receptive again. So when it comes to little things in life, we're like, okay, a parking spot here or this or that, little things here. But when it comes to big, major things in our life, the idea of kind of giving it up and releasing our control over it and just knowing and walking in faith, that's a real difficult task. So we don't give it up easily. We go like this. Here, you have it. Clenched fist. And it's like, oh, and it doesn't work, right? Because there's no way for the universe to fill that space because it's done with a clenched fist. It's done in fear. It's done in anxiety. So it's when we let go of that idea that things begin to flow. We begin to receive, and it becomes our minds become a vehicle and of receptivity instead of this thing that just holds all this anxiety and tension in place. It releases it into something more easy and flowing. Now, for many people, this is a real challenge, myself included, because we just don't want to give up the control to the unknown. We're like, okay, but I have to be able to see something or experience something or sense it. We can't, it's crazy, the obsession that we have with making sure that we don't, that we think we know more than what the universe knows and how to deliver it, all right? So it's a beautiful idea that once we can let go of that sponge and let it just begin to soak up that spiritual energy and return to its shape of receptivity, and then it can go, we can work wonders with that idea, all right? All right, here we go. Once we have expressed our needs through prayer or otherwise, some believe that that's what all we must do. On the contrary, we are working with a law that is definite and active, A-C-T-I-V-E, active, and this is only the beginning of our work. The principle of life upon which this law is based is clearly written. It reads, "Give and it shall be given unto you. good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. Giving always precedes and predetermines the reception, whether you are giving your thought, your word, your service, or your deed. Some folks may consider this law as a two-way law. That is, half the time you should be busy giving, and the other half of the time you should be receiving. It's like a proposition of heat and cold. They are two sides to the same law. That is, if we concentrate upon cold and hope and pray to get heat, we are likely to freeze to death. That was kind of Raymond Charles Barker, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. That is, if we, okay. What we must do is give all our thought and effort toward building a fire or seeking that which will create heat to warm us. If we concentrate upon receiving, not giving any thought or idea or desire to build upon, we in like manner may perish. So it's not one thing to go, I'm cold, God, pray for heat. It's called get busy and listen to the creative energy that will help you generate heat. Okay, that will, in other words, if you're feeling scarce and poor, if you're feeling like you have a lot of lack and limitation in your life, the idea is not to focus on that and pray something in like that. It's to pray it in, but then go and seek and find it. Right? I mean, I love to go back to that Bible verse: "Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken down, running over." Giving precedes all of that. And I have to give of my energy and my attention and my time and my treasure in order to be fully involved in this law, to be fully functioning in your life, in all areas of your life. You have to be fully engaged. I mean, I'm not talking about kind of semi in drive. You're in drive and your foot is on the gas and you're going for it. I can tell you by personal history and myself and with Trey, my partner, we learned all of these lessons of giving and receiving and tithing. It started with the Dwayne Gaines and then Mary Men and Morrissey and several other programs, Prosperity Plus programs and things like that. And we learned the value of that. And once we began to trust it, and I'm going to bring this up a little bit later because it's in the chapter. Once we began to trust that law, then we never had to worry about it happening. Now, that didn't mean I didn't worry. That didn't mean that I just casually went, oh, okay, whatever, God has this in charge. No, you know me, right? You know me and you know my type. And you're probably like that to some degree, where you want to think in your head that you're being the greatest little metaphysician in the whole wide world. But the reality is sometimes we suck at it because we do continue to diminish our own demonstrations through our doubt. All right, jumping in, here we go. When we speak of giving, most people have a tendency to think first of giving their money. Money, an object of human affection, so passionate that men will slay and steal to gain its possession, is by nature so obedient to our will that we can hold it gently in our hand or fold it fondly in our purse without feeling any resistance from its nature. With all the selfish getting ideas which man attaches to it, man has not changed its nature or its purpose. What does money get out of constantly giving itself into hands that are so eagerly to grasp it? Nothing. Nothing beyond the joy of giving itself in the fulfillment of its mission. Man may do some terrible deed to obtain it. He may pay it for something detrimental to his progress, but in all these exchanges, man, not money, loses value. In other words, the actual instrument, the thing itself, the dollar bill, the money, is money. It doesn't have an emotion attached to it. It's how we generate the emotion of its givingness and receiving of that. That's how we outline, if you will, how we are perceived to our perception of money and the willingness of it to come in and out of our experience and back in and out of our experience and back in and back out. Okay, he continues to say this. Where to go? Its purpose is exchanging without discrimination, leaving the latter to the mind that is using it. Money goes merrily on its way, losing nothing in self-value in giving itself. All right? Money came into form to fill the need for exchange, and on that purpose, it is all intent. Let our attitude toward it be what it may. Money will remain true to its nature as long as it is needed by its master. Man, if we fail to pay full value in exchange, we fail to understand the prospering law back of the idea. Money represents the law of services, its value and the estimation of worth placed upon it by the mind of you and I, while its form is designed to ensure the easiest exchange. When we give our best in some useful service, forgetful of self, concentrating on the joy of giving instead of concentrating on the returns, we find that our purpose and the purpose of money have blended, and we come together in righteousness and eternal good. Now, here's what's really interesting. When I read that today, or not today, when I read it over a couple of days ago, and I was rereading it this morning, I was coming to the conclusion that given the evolution of money, now, when you think about when this was written, there was cash, and there were probably checks, and probably in money orders, cashier checks, something like that. But the way we exchange money now, with credit cards the way they are, with Venmo and Zelle and PayPal and how we pay for things instantaneously without actually the touching of money, it loses a lot of its spiritual practice and awareness, because we just so casually go in, click on it, add it to my cart, check out, make sure the address is right where it's going to be sent, check out, pay, done. We have no transaction in our mind over the value and the energy of money that we just spent. We just went shopping, click, 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 click. There wasn't a real effort on our part to appreciate the actual return, the click button, the enter button, when we put our payment in. It's become very casual. I mean, I was paying our housekeeper today. And I told her, I said, look, I don't want to write checks anymore. So you need to get a Venmo account or a PayPal or a Zelle account or something. Have your daughter help you. Because I wanted that to happen, because I wanted to make it easier on me so I didn't have to sit around and write a check or put cash in an envelope. I wanted to be able to go, you know what, I'm out for the day and I forgot to leave you a check. Boom, 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 it's in your account. Now, doing that, I kind of lose its value for myself, because in writing the check and giving her the cash, there was a sign of gratitude on my part for her efforts. It was like, okay, and now it's become very casual. It's click, 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 done. Got to check it off my list, instead of having an energy exchange with it. So I want us to be aware of that, because in this universe, it's ever expanding. And now you can click, and you don't even have to sign for a credit card exchange anymore. When you go to a store, you can actually take your credit card and just click something. You just tap it. You tap it. And boom, out it goes. And that spiritually, we have to start really making an effort to balance part of that out, because we are actually exchanging an energy there, and we're getting too casual about it. I think it's very easy, but it gets very casual in its process. All right, let me go on. Here we go. Whew. So often I hear people say, well, I do give. And sometimes I give until it hurts, but I seldom see any sign of anything in return. Are you one of those? I used to say that. I used to say, I give and I give and I give till I just can't give anymore. I'm just so tired of giving. And anybody know someone like that? Anyway, there is a right way and a wrong way to give. There is careless, impulsive giving, and there is careful, scientific giving. When we give to a person or group of persons where we are retarding progress, we are wasting our substance. Where we give to one who doesn't put forth the effort to help himself, we are not expecting a good return. This is probably one of the best lines coming up that Raymond Holliwell ever wrote. All right. And I attribute it to him a lot, because to me, it's one of the best lines ever. Nature, capital N, does not support a parasite or a loafer, but she gives her energy to the ones who are struggling forward. She lets the parasite and the loafer see that she will help them if they put forth the effort to help themselves. But with us, if we support a loafer in what he is in, how can we expect any good returns? Rather, the loafer becomes arrogant and demanding for more and more relief, until we wonder where and when it will end. A practical interpretation of this law: when you see someone when you see someone making an effort to help himself, that is the time to assist them. But do not give of your substance to the one who will not help himself or at least try. The latter type will not only misuse your gift, but will abuse you if and when you cease giving. Nature does not support a parasite, and his word is loafer. Does not support a parasite or a loafer. It just can't. It just can't. Now, we, in our carelessness, like you said, there's wise giving and there's careless giving, and there's scientific giving. And the scientific giving looks at a situation and says, if a person is trying to help themselves and they need a leg up, just a little something to help, that's the time to help when they're actually engaged in the process. But to throw money and your substance, your energy of money, to something or someone who is like laying down on the couch watching Netflix all day and making no effort whatsoever to get out of their way, but you're there to help pay their rent so that they don't get evicted, that is something we need to look at, because that person's not taking responsibility for their own demonstration. We're just subsidizing that parasite. Isn't that awful? The way he says that, can't take that. Gotta have my water. All right. Jesus gave his substance always where it would do the most good. He fed the multitude because they were seeking good, not because they were begging for food. All right. Nowhere do we find him giving as much as a thought to anyone except those who desired to improve and grow. He cautioned others about unwise giving. Do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and rend you. He meant simply, do not give your substance to anyone who cannot appreciate it or improve with it. It is foolish as a child giving a loaded gun and expecting him to realize the danger of doing so. Sooner or later, the child, through lack of appreciation, will either hurt someone or get hurt, to the sorrow of all concerned. You cannot build something on nothing and expect something in return. If in your giving there is no principle of good in some measure, no matter how small, to add to it, then you are casting your pearls away. You are wasting your substance. I'm telling you, this chapter, if you get this chapter and come back and read this chapter, watch this show over and over, this particular one, and you really spend some time digging into it, man, good stuff here. Now, all right, I'm going to walk into the area that most ministers fear, and I'm just going to walk into it because it's time. We just have to have this talk. We have to have this talk. And it's a talk over something that when most people hear it, they just cringe. Actually, their intestines bunch up and their fists clench and they grab their wallets and they go, oh my God, this is what people talk about in church all the time. And no. This is not about the church. This is about your life. This is about practicing the law of tithing, giving and receiving, and how this actually does work. And I can tell you through my own personal experience that, yes, I've had financial ups and downs, but the consistency that Trey and I have achieved through the act of doing this one thing consistently every single week for probably about 12 years now, every single week, this one act of faith generates and keeps us at a level where we are happy and healthy and sustainable and just literally, things may shake us, but we're not totally shaken. All right. Somebody just said it's difficult to see people who choose to live as a parasite. It is. It's difficult to watch that because we think in our giving nature we can change their behavior, but you can't change someone's behavior if they're literally just a parasite. They're sucking things. Just take it. Take. They suck you dry. Take. It doesn't work. There has to be an element of activity on their part. Okay, so I'm going to jump into this. So this is where probably some of you will go, okay, I got to tune out now because this is where my grandmother used to talk about this stuff and I hated it. But run with me here. At least listen. Many have found tithing a successful form of giving, but the question mind wonders, why would tithing be more potent than any other form of giving? Answer. It is more potent because you touch the law of giving and receiving in a definite, orderly, or systemic way of giving. You establish a methodical plan of giving which creates a steady flow of reciprocal good to be received.
When one's method of giving is sporadic or occasional, one's reception of good is irregular, sporadic, and occasional. And it's also uncertain. Scientists analyze it. They say that tithing gives you and I self-reliance, a confidence which enables you and I to build up a positive mental attitude, which attracts success. Others say that a tither already has considerable confidence to take the chance to spend his money that way. This makes him a positive type and attracts only positive and goodly conditions. Then there are others who take a spiritual view toward tithing and assume that God is their partner and they are only paying 1/10 of their receipts as his share. Then too, some make the mistake in tithing when they give for selfish gain or when they make a bargain of it. Remember, it is not the money you give, it is the idea back of the giving that is so vital. If you give money and the idea is wholly one of bargaining, your mind is not free. Therefore, your results cannot be free and full-flowing. Tithing, no matter what one may think about it, if one thinks at all, has a tendency to bring you and I into line with the law of giving, and his results will be in proportion to the honesty, sincerity, and spirit of his gift. There it is. And now tithing, real quick, tithing isn't 1% or 2% or 4% or 8%. Tithing is 10. The word tithe means tenth. Like the farmer takes a tenth of their crop, right, and reduces it down to seed so that that tenth becomes the seed money for the next crop. That's kind of the premise, okay? The 10% thing has nothing to do with the tax or the church or anything. It's just the law of what nature even does to employ the growth of its food and crops. 10% of those things that drop onto the ground, 10% of them take root and they create more things, right? More abundance, all right? Not 100% of the things not 100% of the acorns take root and become trees. A very small percent, they say 10%, become the next trees, right? They become the next, possibility of trees. Okay, someone wrote a very long thing. Here we go. Feeling this, I need to reconnect conscious giving and purchasing, touching, feeling, and being aware of what I am circulating has been powerful in my life. I'll be more conscious when pressing the button to purchase and when swiping my card. Thank you, God, for each transaction. Thank you. Absolutely. Whoever that is. I don't know. Dramatic being. Whoever dramatic being is. Absolutely. Rewinding just a little bit. Becoming more aware of what we're doing. The law of giving and the law of receiving is an awareness, and we can't just operate in this obliviousness. Okay, here we go. Can't be oblivious to it. I'm going to keep going. Jesus praised and blessed the widow who gave her all, her might, into the church coffer, but criticized the rich man offering his bags of gold. Why do you suppose? He took exception in this case to praise the lowly gift of the widow. He knew the law of giving was in action. It was the spirit of her gift that prompted his blessing. When John D. Rockefeller was a poor boy, he was able to apply the law early in his life. When he earned his first money, he kept a record of his givings and receivings, and he kept a ledger all through his life. It is known that he gave away more than $500 million. That's years ago. Possibly we can judge why he received so much to give. But after we give, that is not all we must do. Our next step is to prepare to receive the response or results of our giving and to receive, as the law states, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is the most interesting part because our preparation shows our active faith. Instead of rocking and waiting, we are preparing and working. This in turn enlarges our view. It stimulates our interest, it disperses our doubt and fear, and energizes our power of reception. This was clearly illustrated by the prophet Elijah when the three kings came to him and asked him to pray for what they would be victorious in battle, and that he might reign to supply their soldiers and animals. Elijah told the kings to go back to their camps and prepare for the morrow, prepare to receive the water that they asked for by digging ditches. Now, if you've ever been in the desert, you will know that even the most foolish idea to dig ditches in the sand is to expect rain to fall. But the kings did as they were told. They prepared for the rain by digging the ditches, and clouds gathered, and rain fell, and the ditches were filled. The men and their beasts were satisfied. Their thirst was quenched, and going into battle strengthened, they were victorious. All right? Prepare ye the way of the Lord. This is what we're talking about.
This is how we embody this idea. When one practices the law of receiving and the law of giving, you're preparing the way of the universe to treat you in spiritual goodness, and your receptivity to that is extremely important, and your preparation for it must be intentional. In other words, I know what I want, when I want it, and how I want it, right? And I use the universe and the law of giving and receiving to go, if I'm consistent with the universe is consistent with me. And it complies with that, but I have to be ready for it. Example that I've used several times, years and years and years and years ago. This is like 20 some years ago. When I was working in my other job, one of the secretaries in our office won a huge lottery, like $67 million, right? And we were like, whoa. And so obviously she quit, and we didn't hear from her for a while. But what happened was this: a few years later, she's back working for us. And we're like, wait, how? And we think, no one could do this, right? That would never happen to me. Hey, Google this and look at these people who ultimately just, it's bestowed upon them without any effort. They're just given it without anything. That money slips through their hands. And why does it slip through their hands? Because they haven't created the mental house and the foundation to sustain and maintain it. They think by easy getting, I will be taken care of. But they don't understand that there are people out there who see you as an easy mark for you to give, for them to take what you've been given and run with it. And because you are not building up your knowledge base, your mental capital to sustain your financial capital, because you haven't built that structure, you don't know how to manage it. And people will go, that's crazy. Look, I've seen it happen. There's shows all over the place. Google it. There are stories of all these lottery winners who just become, they get like gazillion dollars, and then boom, they're back on Skid Row, years later, having just squandered the whole thing. Why? Because it takes mental energy to not just be the receiver, but to prepare the way of the Lord, prepare the way of the receiving, okay, so that you can sustain, maintain, and grow it. It's not just about the one-time gift coming in and then, oh my gosh, it's having the idea that no matter what it is, if it's health, if it's a relationship, if it's money, whatever it is, whatever the abundance of the universe comes to greet you, one has to take the effort to learn how to sustain, maintain, and grow it. Otherwise, once it's received, it will begin to diminish slowly but surely, or whatever pace. It will begin to diminish, and because you have no energy to educate and become more knowledgeable and understand how to manage things, it begins to diminish until suddenly it disappears. So you have to be, before one wants to receive a great gift, one better be prepared how to manage it. I know people that have said, I want to start this business up, and they've got a great idea for a business. It's like, if I could just get this business started. I'm like, okay, well, if I could just get this money to get this business started. I'm like, it's not just the money to get it started. That's one part of it. Yes, that's one very important part. But what about the other 75%, which is once the money's in hand, how do you manage it? How do you keep it? How do you continue the flow in the business? What is the marketing? What is the networking? What is the work behind once you get money in an idea? What is the work to continue it moving into the universe so it can continue to supply you with good? It's where we fall down, all right? All right. The key to the law is that we are continually drawing into life what we give and expect. Whether we attract good or bad is governed by the same principle. You have probably made the remark, oh yes, it is just as I expected, and especially when some unpleasant condition or circumstance arose. You invited the condition just because you gave out the thought of expecting it. I don't like that one. I don't like that one because it makes me responsible for the crap that happens in my life. And then when I say, oh, I knew that was going to happen, I'm like, yeah, you knew it. You know why? Because you were concentrating on it. You know why you're in plan B? Because you didn't accept plan A. You kept working on the B plan or C plan or D plan or default plan, or what happens if this doesn't work? Of course it didn't happen because you expected it not to happen, and we're making plans accordingly. Think about it. The reason why we do certain things is because we expect things not to happen because they're not happening the speed at which we think they should happen. And because of that, we make a plan in case it doesn't happen. And that's the plan we really work on for it not happening. And then it's no surprise that it never happens and that the B, C, or D plan is the one that comes into play. Silly. Aren't we silly? Silly people. Okay. Here we go. Moving on. You invited the condition just because you gave out the thought of expecting it. You can also expect good to appear on the same principle, and you can help it come to pass by the method of your preparation. Many failures and demonstrations are because we do not force our expectations to keep apace with our desires. Very often we desire one thing and expect another in our hearts another, which creates confusion. The master said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. When a mind is confused, there is no cooperation, nor is there a united force to attract the strength it requires. Positive mental radiations will drive away all clouds of doubt and fear with confident expectation that all good things will work all right, and will put matters right. There is a power within, greater by far than any difficulty that you can ever meet. That power will never fail to see you through. This is good stuff. I hope you guys are liking this. I know there's 2 people watching, 3 people. I hope there's more than that. All right. You may ask. Here we go. Where are we? What time is it? Okay. I only got like 2 more pages. You may ask, can I desire things not ready for me to have? Can I ask too much of the law? Does the law withhold things from me which are not my good? True desire represents the urge of life seeking a fuller expression. It is kept alive by continuous expectation of its fulfillment. It brings to us ways and means for its manifestation. The principle explains, no desire is felt until the supply is ready to appear. Did you hear that? No desire is felt on your part unless the universe has a way already to deliver it. So in other words, the answer is already there. If you have the desire, then the universe has already designed the plan or a series of plans or the possibility of the plan for you to walk down that path and receive it. If you can conceive it, you can achieve it because the universe already has it in place. Okay? Your prayer, your desire, and your inner urge are like a magnet, and the stronger they are, the stronger the power of your magnet and the greater its attraction. You cannot ask too much of the law, for it is unlimited and the supply is inexhaustible. You can only get what you can conceive, what you can understand. You can only get the equivalent to what you give. The law does not withhold any more than mathematics withholds its numbers. You may receive some things that appear not good, but yet good may come from them, like mistakes in mathematics. Whereas you make many mistakes, the mistakes enable you by their correction to better know the law. After you've made one or several corrections, you will never again repeat the same mistake. So in that way, the law has served you well and has supplied you with greater knowledge. The Lord loveth a cheerful giver. The law serveth a free and willing giver. Whatever you give, give it with free and willing spirit. Give it out with no obligations or dictations attached. Then it will come back to you unburdened without obligations or restrictions of any form. Wow. Wow. Thanks, Hannah. And thanks whoever wrote Life is a Sitcom. It feels like it sometimes. I'm writing the script. This is good stuff, guys. Ready? I'm going to continue because the last couple paragraphs are probably the most important, right, as we bring it home. But let's go back. Before I do that, I want to go back. The mistakes that we've made are there to bring us to a greater understanding of what needs to be done the next time. And if we understand our mistakes and we accept them, we take responsibility for them and don't make them twice or again, then we will have, quote, learned the lesson. If, however, we make a mistake and then we marry the same person again, or we take the drug again, or take the drink, or eat whatever it is, or buy whatever it is, or use the credit cards, or misuse our body or abuse relationships, if we engage in any of those things again, then the lesson was not learned, and we'll continue playing that out until we go, this is what not to do. All right, here we go. He who gives much receives much. To give your best is to receive the best in ratio to the degree of your giving. The reason why so people receive little is because they give out so little. They are poverty-stricken because they refuse to give. Whatever the nature of your possessions, give and give abundantly. You are to give of your life, interest, energy, thought, ability, love, appreciation, and helpfulness. In giving of your life, thought, and love, in doing gladly and well whatever you may be called upon to do, you express your best, and the more you give, the more you will receive. This does not mean that you are to give to the selfish and thoughtless. This does not mean that you are here to give to the selfish and thoughtless, but to so order your life as to make a full and proper use of your energies, faculties, and talents in useful living. If today your abilities are small and your power is insignificant, begin now to make a more thorough use of them, and they will grow. Recall the story of the master and his servants, to whom he gave each a talent, some 2, some 3, and some more. And from those he expected a harvest according to their respective endowments. There was greater joy in heaven over him who had but 1 talent and used it well, over the one who had many talents but failed to employ them in useful service. Hence the servant with 1 talent took the higher place. In other words, the individual who makes full use of what he has shall be blessed with more and more. In what measures it shall be measured unto thee again. That is the path of increase. That is the secret of the law of receiving. It's not about having the multiple talents. It's having the one, like he had 1 talent and he made the best use of it, and he rose to the top because of that one thing. It didn't take a portfolio. It didn't take a resume. It didn't take, a giant, a resume. That's what I'm saying. A giant resume and networking. It takes an idea. It takes a talent and a commitment and an expectation that one thing can yield all sorts of things. And it opens up the doors to all sorts of things. But just starts with that one thing. It doesn't have to be a multitude. It can just be that one thing. He goes on to say this. If the business world accepts the giving of service as the basis of success and progress, can we not accept the same truth in our business of living life? Let me say that again. If the business world accepts the giving of service as the basis of success and progress, can we not accept the same truth in our business of living life? This is not a religious plea. This is good logic or plain common sense. For if the law works in one department, it will work in every department wherever we choose to apply it. Whatever you desire in the way of health, success, happiness, riches, or power, start toward it. Start it on its way by this procedure. The law works. The results are sure because a natural principle is involved. You may proceed without doubt or fear to desire and to expect all the good you can realize, use, and enjoy. When the mind of man becomes unselfish to the point of yielding to the law, you and I have been born anew. And our attitude toward the law itself and our fellow person is changed, and our affairs take on the character of the newness of thought. We can change the trajectory if we learn this law of receiving, the law of giving, and how to maintain that excellence of expectation in our minds. To take that talent and that treasure and that helpfulness and that givingness and that lovingness and to put it out into the universe, knowing full well that once we do that in an unconditional way, not because it is expected to return, but it returns pressed down and flowing over. I don't have to think about the returns. I don't put it out there and say, okay, if I invest 10%, that means next week I'm going to get 90% back. There's no math here. It's consistency. It's belief and the consistency around it. It's not sporadic. It's not out of balance. It's just consistency. When one applies this particular law in a consistent form, the needs, the material needs, and I'll say that because I think it affects a lot of the material needs, are always met and then some. Because I have enough to be comfortable with, to give, and to share. Right? To share and to spare. All right. That's great for discussion today. Top of the month, paying bills and started morning giving thanks to God and writing notes of gratitude and payment calendar with a happy heart. You know, every check that we ever wrote, now it's auto pay, so I've gotten a habit of that, but every check we ever wrote, puppy sitter, housekeeper, the church, whatever it was, whatever the check was, in every memo, thank you, God. Not the abbreviation, not, TYG, thank you, God, exclamation point. I remember Dr. Tom writing a thank you note. When he left the desert, he actually wrote a thank you note to the power company with his final payment. And could you imagine? Dear SCE, I've just been living in the desert for 40 years and I'm leaving, and I wanted to thank you for keeping my house warm when it was cold and cool when it was hot, for keeping my food cold in the refrigerator, and for keeping, my oven working. I mean, I just thought it was brilliant. What a great idea. Giving thanks. And giving thanks, even though we pay for it. But there's an activity and an action in the world around us that it's not just about paying for something and taking for granted for it. It's actually being grateful for that service. Even though we pay for it, I'm grateful for it. So there's so much meat in this chapter. And the last thing is he wrote down this, it's a prayer by Arthur William Beer. Let me read this. To get he had tried, yet his store was still meager. To a wise man he cried in a voice keen and eager, pray tell me how I may successfully live. And the wise man replied, to get you must give. As to giving, he said, what have I to give? I've scarce enough bread, and of course one must live. But I would partake of life's bountiful store, came the wise man's response, then you must give more. The lesson he learned, to get was forgotten. Toward mankind he turned with the love new begotten. As he gave of himself in unselfish living, the joy crowned his days, and he grew rich in giving. And through the law, that big circle. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Thank you for those who commented today. Tomorrow, I think Reverend Brad has Lloyd Tupper, which I think is going to be a real treat. And then, of course, the ministerial new ministers have their show on Wednesday. On Friday, we have a special, and Laura, of course, has her Friday show. Dr. Laura. On Friday, we have a special opportunity. Dr. James Mellon from the Westlake Global Truth Center will be joining me. James is one of my really close friends and has been for many, many, many years. And he and I decided we just needed to have a conversation online and let you watch that. And so I think it's going to be really interesting, and I highly encourage you to tune in. Dr. James was the instructor of our new ministerial students. Like I said, he and I have been friends in ministry for years, actually since the onset, when we both became ministers right around the same time. So join Dr. James and I for a special broadcast on Friday. And if you didn't see the broadcast with Elizabeth last week, make sure you pop in, because that was really a lot of fun. So it's on YouTube. You can go on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Go to YouTube, subscription, CSL Palm Desert, Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. Is subscribe to our channel so that you're one of the many. We are trying to get over the 1,000 mark. I think we're like the high 7s now. If we get over 1,000, things begin to change. So thank you all for the comments that are coming in. I really appreciate all of you watching and listening. Let's put this together now as a spiritual practice. I would say click on this link and think about starting your tithing efforts, because once one jumps into it, keep it consistent. The law will be consistent with you. Give where you are spiritually fed, and if this is where you were fed today, then give a gift to the center so that we know and continue doing what we're doing. We're actually coming up on our 365th show. We've been doing this so very long, so very long. So take care of yourself, take care of one another, and be of good heart and be giving. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Click on the link to give. You can call, you can text, and I miss you too. Wow, I miss everybody so much. Have a great Monday. Have a great week. It's the beginning of March. It looks beautiful out, so let's have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye now.